Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thanks so very much for being here. This is a one-time and 150-year event. Probably none of us will be here the next time around. So let's take advantage of it and enjoy the day that has been brought before us. Those that are in the cake line, we're not sure where that. If you could use this part of the concrete until this event is over. It'll make it a lot easier when we start working on the cake line. And that's probably not going to work. Maybe we should give the numbers up here to use back there. Is that reasonable? Okay. I don't think it's going to work. 150 years ago today, this territory had become an organized community. And the Prescott that we all enjoy today really started back on that day, and it's been a continuation of success and the right people being involved in the right things, and what we have is what we see today. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to take the first few minutes and talk about how this happened today. A group of volunteers started meeting in April of last year, talking about what would be appropriate and befitting to celebrate our 150th anniversary. This event is a joint effort between the City of Prescott, the Prescott Chamber of Commerce, the Prescott Downtown Partnership, Charlotte Hall Museum, the Eagles Management and Events Organization, the Prescott Regulators and their Shady Ladies, and in addition to that, a lot of other community organizations and individuals. I want to give special thanks to the committee chair, Neil Thomas, who I hope is, Neil, are you out there? Okay. Who volunteered countless hours, and also Melissa Ruffner, who you'll hear from a little bit later, that was a major part of what we're seeing today. Judy Paris, she and her group have organized numerous organizations to create the new West area at the Mile High Middle School. And there'll be events going on there all day tomorrow and Sunday afternoon. Becky Carsey at the City of Prescott for organizing the Family Fun Zone on the Courthouse Plaza, and certainly Kendall Jaspers of the Prescott Downtown Partnership for taking many, many hours and a lot of other details that he was able to handle. The entire council of the City of Prescott, our 506 employees, take a lot of pride in what's happening today, and they always step up to make events like this possible. And I know I'm going to miss a lot of people, but I apologize in advance for that. Next on the podium will be a good friend of ours, a good friend of the whole communities. He was mayor for 3 terms, now is chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Rollie Simmons. Rollie, come on up.
Thank you, Marlon. Is this not great? I'm standing here looking up, and I don't know how many of you were here for the picture. Give me a cheer if you were here for the picture. Where you won't find me, Melissa Ruffner had a big deal, a big thing over her head, and I'm standing right under it. Carousel. Anyhow, I don't know about the rest of you, but the rumor is that Marlon was here for the first anniversary. He's been around so long. Is that true, Marlon? I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Joe Baines is over here going like this, but I want to welcome you, and I'm representing the supervisors. All of us welcome you. Our pride, the plaza and the courthouse. As you know, we've started stage 3 of the remodel on this building, a major project, and to maintain the pride of Prescott. And so, welcome to all of you. We're going to be having the cake here pretty soon, and we really appreciate you showing up, and have a great time.
Thank you, Rolly, and those of you that don't know, the Yavapai County owns this plaza, and all of the events that happen here is because the relationship between the City of Prescott and the Board of Supervisors of Yavapai County work together and make these things happen. So again, Rolly, thanks very much, and we appreciate it. Today we're honored to be able to do a special recognition from the Governor of Arizona. Let me get geared up here. The print is small, and I need help. This proclamation is from the Office of the Governor with special recognition. Whereas gold was discovered by the Walker Party, led by Joseph R. Walker and some members who were from the southern states, as indicated in a loyalty oath to the Union taken at Santa Fe before General James Carleton. And whereas the federal government was engaged in a costly civil war and did not want the Confederacy to control this gold find and use it to further their cause. And whereas Governor John Goodwin of Maine was appointed by President Abraham Lincoln to establish a government seat in the newly formed Arizona Territory. And whereas after establishing a temporary camp at Del Rio Springs, government officials moved to a site near Granite Creek to be closer to the gold fields. And whereas a meeting was held on May 30th, 1864 at Manuel Yasaro's store on Granite Creek, where by act of those present, Arizona's first territorial capital was established and named after a popular historian and author, William Hicking Prescott. And whereas Prescott is unique in the history of the United States in that it is the only territorial capital created where there was no town. Now therefore, I, Janice K. Brewer, Governor of the state of Arizona, do hereby congratulate the town of Prescott on its 150th anniversary of its establishment in the great state of Arizona. Happy 150th birthday. And we're gonna sing Happy Birthday here in a couple of minutes, but we have a great Arizonian, a good friend to all of Prescott, all of Yavapai County, all of northern Arizona, and the whole state of Arizona. And I was going to try to just make a simple introduction, but this is one that's impossible. So bear with me, and you're going to get to know an awful lot about a guy that's very important to us. Official state historian Marshall Trimble is the author of more than 20 books on Arizona. He's one of the state's most popular speakers and performers, appearing frequently on stage, radio, and television as a goodwill ambassador for the state. Often referred to as the Will Rogers of Arizona, he can deliver anything from a serious history lecture to a stage concert with his guitar of Western folk music, tall tales, and true stories. He answers questions about the Old West from readers all over the world in True West magazine's popular column, Ask the Marshal. A former Marine, in 2004 he was inducted to the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame. In 2007, the Arizona Office of Tourism honored him with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his many years of service to his native state. During Arizona's centennial, he was honored as one of Arizona's most inspiring leaders. He was inducted into the Arizona Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame in 2011. That same year, he received the Al Merito Award from the Arizona Historical Society in recognition for a lifelong distinguished service in promoting Arizona history. In 2012, he was selected for the U.S. State Department's Cowboy Hall of Fame tour, a goodwill visit to the Far East to visit our troops and share American cowboy culture with the people of those countries. The Historical League of the Arizona Historical Society named him one of 7 history makers for the year 2014. And that same year, he received the Semper Fi Award from the U.S. Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. Put your hands together, welcome with me Marshall Trimble, and the first thing he's going to do is lead us in the singing of Happy Birthday, Arizona. Marshall, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, how's the key of G sound? I don't know how it sounds, but I'll just start out. Y'all join, okay? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, old Prescott. Happy birthday to you. Yeah. I'll tell you, the mayor ought to give me the off key to the city for that one. You know, every time I hear myself introduced, I hear that long introduction and all that stuff, and I wonder, are they talking about me? My dad was a railroader on the Santa Fe Railroad. He was an engineer on the P-Vine that ran from Ash Fork, Prescott to Phoenix. Probably a lot of you, any of you remember the P-Vine? Okay, the old P-Vine. Well, we didn't see a whole lot of him. I grew up there in Ash Fork, not knowing much about my dad. I waved to him sometimes as he went by on the train. And when he died, my mother and I, we did the funeral, and we were sitting there in the church, and the preacher just went on and on about a wonderful, wonderful man, what a great father that he was, and what a great provider that he was, and just a great family man that he was. And my mother's a little Irish woman, and finally she nudges me like that. She says, "Marshall, go up there and look in the casket and see if that's really your father in there." You know, I love Yavapai County. I grew up in Yavapai County. We came here in 1947 and lived up there in Ash Fork, which was called undeveloped North Prescott, I guess, at the time. But I just want you to know, Yavapai County, when this territory was established, Yavapai County was one of 4 counties. And Yavapai is today the mother county. It's considered the mother county of Arizona because all of those other counties out there, Coconino, Apache, Navajo, part of Gila, some of those other counties down there, they were all a part of Yavapai County at one time. But this place has such a great history, not to mention all the great stuff that happened at Ash Fork. We were so small that our sister city was a Taco Bell in Costa Rica. But I think of a lot of the things, and me personally, I played in the first Arizona State Little League Championship game here in 1951. Ash Fork played Prescott. That was, boy, talk about David and Goliath. Well, Prescott beat us that night. I think they were using a bunch of older kids, but they went on to win the state championship. But another memory I have out here is I got baptized in Granite Dells. Does anybody remember when Granite Dells was a swimming hole? All I remember about it that day was that I was a bad kid in Ash Fork when my mother got me baptized, and so all I remember is that the preacher held me underwater so long, my whole life passed before me. I remember thinking, I'm going to be the first kid in history that died at his own baptism, got drowned. But You know, I love this town. In 1900, and I'm not going to go into the details of the big fire, except to say that at the Palace Bar over here across the street, there was no courthouse here at the time. They unloaded everything over here when Prescott caught fire. It was July 14th of 1900 when the fire started, and it started to burn down the business district. And they moved the back bar and all of its contents over across the street, right over here where we're right in this area. And there was also a barber shop in there, and there was a barber that they brought the barber chair over. The customers they brought the barber over, made sure he was safe. And there was a piano player. They brought the piano player over here, made sure he was safe. And that night, while Prescott was burning, the piano player and the barber went ahead and cut hair. The bartender continued to serve drinks, and the piano player continued to play. And the most requested song that night was "There'll Be a Hot Time in the Old Town Tonight." But to me, the best part of that story was the next day. Prescott was in ruins. The whole area here, the whole business district was in ruins. And what were those Prescottonians doing? They were picking up whatever they could scavenge out of their stores, and they moved out on the sidewalk, and they went back into business. Nobody starts hollering, "Hey, Washington, what are you going to do? You're going to get somebody, come and help us, come do something for us." They did it themselves. And that's the Westerners. Well, over there, Bob Brow, who owned the Palace Saloon at the time, he put up a tent. And the bar went into business the next day, and Bob Brow put up a sign on his saloon. I've got it on my screensaver down at the college, where I see it every day, many times, and it says, Brow's Palace Saloon, and not ashamed of it. And that was the spirit of those people that lived in Prescott during those times. And one other favorite of mine was, talking about the big fire, was, you say far. Was the night that the great sheriff of Yavapai County, one of the greatest sheriffs in Western history, was a fellow named George Ruffner. You're going to meet some of his relatives here, or you probably already have. But George won a mortuary in a poker game. And as sheriff of the county, the old-timers at least say this. I can't vouch for the veracity of it, but the old-timers say that George Ruffner, as sheriff, he could shoot him, he could embalm him, and he could bury him. And this was a good deal for the taxpayer. They got an all-in-one thing for it. So, well, I could keep you up here for a long, long time telling you stories about Prescott. You'll have to come and see me over at the Palace Bar sometime. Melissa Ruffner, speaking of George Ruffner, Melissa Ruffner and I will be over at the Palace in August. I think the first week of August, isn't it, Melissa? And speaking of Melissa, I want to bring her up here. I could keep you here all night telling stories and cowboy poems and stuff, but we got other things to do, and I know you want to get a piece of that cake. So I'm going to bring Melissa Ruffner up here now. Give her a big hand. Let's put it together for Melissa.
Let me tell you, folks, you don't want to miss August 4th at the Palace, because Marshall's going to tell you some of those stories, and then I'm going to correct him, and that's what the whole evening's going to be like. Probably the only time it'll ever happen. We do this a lot to each other. So what a thrill to be here. You know, my father, Budge Ruffner, was the commissioner for the Centennial, and it's been my great joy to serve on the committee, and we've been a hard-working committee, lots and lots of hours spent, and your showing up for this great party has made it all worthwhile. This plaza actually was created because the townspeople at that time foresaw that this would be the meeting place for folks, and that's the way it has been since almost day one, and we're so glad when we see people down here for all kinds of events, but we'll never be here again for another 150th birthday. I have a special treat for you, and that is that a friend of mine from the Arizona Pioneers Home. The Arizona Pioneers Home is that big brick building up on the ridge southwest of town. And our early pioneers, actually the miners, went into the Pioneers Home because many of them had never seen the elephant. They hadn't made any money at it. And so they were taken care of. by some of the early people who had made money in mining. And later on they had women enter. And the lady who's going to actually cut the piece ceremoniously of the birthday cake for Prescott's 150th is a beautiful woman, 96 years old, a resident of the Arizona Pioneers Home. Because she worked at Baghdad, she actually could come in as a miner. And her name is Mabel Clarkson. And she will be doing that in just a little while. I'm going to have Marshall come back up and tell you a story or two while we get ready, and then we'll let you know when we're ready to serve that cake. Thank you so much.
A few years ago, Melissa's dad, Budge Ruffner, and I know many of you knew Budge. Budge was a mentor to me when I was a young historian, and he used to tell a story about an Eastern judge named John Hawkins who came out to Prescott. He was on his way to California to practice law. He had graduated from an Eastern law school, and when he got out, he stopped off in Prescott on the way to California, and he thought, I can't find anything in California that can beat Prescott. So he stayed here, and he became, started out as a lawyer, and then became a well-known judge. And he was known for bringing a little class and culture to his courtroom. And as Budge told the story, as no other could tell it, I sat down one night and wrote a poem that was later published in American Cowboy magazine, and I'd like to share it with you now. Oh, Prescott of yore was wild and untamed, a frontier Gomorrah, the kind Mark Twain exclaimed. He said, this place is no place for a Presbyterian. So therefore, he added, I chose not to remain one. A cowpuncher named Pete was arrested one day for stealing a horse. It was old Grady's Red Bay. He was hauled into court looking guilty, of course, because he was caught red-handed on old Grady's Bay horse. Now the judge was a stickler for good courtroom etiquette. He'd come from back east, but he was the law around Prescott. His constituents, though, were mostly uncultured and coarse, unmarried, unwashed, and uncultured and coarse. Well, the courtroom got quiet as the judge took his seat. Are you the plaintiff or the defendant? He glared down at Pete. Why, them jaw-breaking words, they confused Pete, of course. Your Honor, he cried, I'm the one that stole the bay horse. Well, Pete had just talked himself into a pretty good mess. He needed a lawyer, and Dewey Cheatham was one of the best. A lawyer who could evade all the facts, of course, because Pete was caught red-handed on old Grady's bay horse. Well, he brought in Pete's poor old widowed maw and paraded her up and down before the eyes of the law. And then he brought his faded wife and 6 little ragamuffin deers. By now, that whole dang jury was fighting back tears. The prosecution knew that their case was a wreck when that lawyer grabbed Pete by the nape of the neck. Does this look like the kind of a man who would steal a cayuse? Well, the jury thought no, and they turned old Pete loose. So the judge says to Pete, have you anything to say before I dismiss you? You got something to say to this jury today? Well, sir, yes, sir. There's one thing I'd like to know. Of course, says Judge, does all this mean I get to keep old Grady's bay horse? Well, Pete's old friend met him the next day, and he says, say, I sat in the courtroom of your horse thieving trial. Now, one thing I'd just like to know, did you or not steal old Grady's bay horse? Well, Pete scratched his head and he looked real concerned. And he thought for a moment about all he had learned. Well, I thought that I did, he said with no remorse. But after listening to that lawyer, now I ain't quite so sure. There.
Marshall, this has been a low-budget presentation, as most everybody can tell, I'm sure.
I'm a low-budget worker.
Well, I didn't say that. With this token that has Bucky on one side and the Prescott Sesquicentennial, 150 years, share this with you It will get you absolutely nothing. But you can always remember that it was a great day in Prescott. The cake is ready. I know we're not going to be organized as we make our way back there, but be kind to whoever you're standing next to. There's plenty of cake, and they've been here all day putting it together. So this is the end of this. We've got a full weekend. Tomorrow's a full day. Sunday's a full day. Lots of things happening, and there's some schedules available. So enjoy the celebration with us tomorrow, the next day, and happy birthday, Prescott. Thank you.